Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And our main theme tonight are going to be husbands and wives and recognizable voices. And we're going to start out with the recognizable voice of Arthur Anderson, who died recently at the age of 93. He was part of Orson Welles' Mercury Theatre, but more importantly, although he was not Irish, he was Danish and English. He was the voice of perhaps the most familiar leprechaun in television history. He was the voice of the Lucky Charms leprechaun, the commercials that everybody heard in the 1960s. Here's the original Lucky Charms commercial featuring Arthur Anderson's voice.
"'Tis luck to catch a leprechaun, but of course nobody can. Catch me and you catch me Lucky Charms. A new oat cereal with a charming difference. Sweet surprises. See him? Mixed right in with the cereal. It's a charming cereal. Simply charming. Glory be. Free shamrocks.
Catch a pack of Lucky Charms. Charming. A Big G General Mills cereal.
Yeah, he was always bragging the kids couldn't catch him, but they always did. Here's another commercial from the 60s.
Up here, laddies. You whore laddies. Up here. No wonder they're after me Lucky Charms. 'Tis a new oat cereal with marshmallow bits and lucky shapes. Yellow moons, green four-leaf clovers, orange stars, pink hearts. See 'em mixed right in with the oat cereal. 'Tis a charming cereal, simply charming. A shortcut, I'll take it. 'Tis luck to catch a leprechaun, but nobody can.
Catch a pack of Lucky Charms.
Charming.
A Big G cereal from General Mills.
Well, we're going to move on to another familiar voice. This one was familiar in London and England to anyone who rode the Underground.
Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
That was the voice of Phil Sayre, who died recently at the age of 62. He was the voice of the London Underground. His wife, Eleanor Hamilton, was also a voice of the London Underground, and they were called Britain's most apologetic couple. Here's Manchester Television with a report on Phil Sayre and his wife.
We're sorry to announce that this train is delayed by 12 minutes.
Due to adverse weather conditions, this service is now cancelled.
They're the announcements that you really dread hearing. It's freezing cold, you're standing on the train platform, and suddenly you realise your journey to work is going to take much longer than normal. I'm here to meet two people who've delivered that news thousands of times. Phil and Eleanor are both voiceover artists, and one of their main jobs is recording messages for train and tube stations.
I'd done 10 years at the BBC in Manchester, and that came to an end. And I thought, well, what do I do now? And the answer was voiceovers. The government scrappage scheme ends soon. Urgent warning.
Phil and I being together, we can sort of bounce off each other, and it sounds a lot more natural, so it's quite nice to be able to work with each other. The only thing is that sometimes, funnily enough, we're the UK's most apologetic couple, apparently, because of the rail announcement stuff. If we have a little bit of a Barney or something and a client phones up and says, "Can you do a joint advert?" We're like, yes, of course, that's fine. It was sort of scowling at each other, but still sounding very happy.
I was always told when I was first being trained by a chap who's still in the business, who's very, very good at it, better than I am. When you start to feel slightly ridiculous in yourself, you're probably just about getting it right. All it is actually just a very exaggerated version of your real self. That's right.
People never recognised me on the tube because I had to be so completely neutral. So I ended up talking like this and using a voice that sounds something similar to the next train to Bank will depart in 5 minutes.
But as far as the weather's concerned, it makes no difference to us, or if there's a real big problem somewhere on the network, I won't even know about it, frankly. And although I'm there saying, I'm sorry to announce that the train is delayed, well, I'm not, because I'm still asleep in bed.
Of course, I don't like the idea of people being late and kept shivering, but the likelihood is that, when people, the peak time of the morning, are standing on the platform of Knightsbridge Station waiting for their train to arrive, I'm probably tramping across the field taking my children to school, and funnily enough, my daily commute is just to walk to school with the children and walk back again, and to the studio we literally walk across the hall. Oh, look, Phil, we need to go, we're running late to get the boys from school.
Oh, yes. I apologise for the late collection of the boys from school. This is because of an overrunning voice session earlier. Oh, sorry. Are we going in the car or should we walk?
If we walk, it will take 9 minutes. If we go in the car, it will take 4 minutes.
Tricky one, isn't it? Is it raining?
Of course it's raining. This is Bolton.
car.
Well, as long as we're on husbands and wives, we'll move on to Ann Jackson, who died recently at the age of 80. Nice Irish girl from Brownsville, went to Franklin K. Lane High School, same high school as my dad, and she was a wonderful theater actress. But she's best known as the wife of Eli Wallach, whose podcast we've done, and who was her frequent partner in many of those theater roles. And here she is giving Eli Wallach a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Lifetime achievement? Oh my God. He hasn't even started yet. I am very proud of my husband, but I have to be honest about something. Can I be honest about something? Eli will never get to the point of lifetime achievement because he's constantly evolving and he knows there's always something to improve. One of the things I really love about Eli is that he's still learning. And this leads me to the truth of the matter. I taught him everything he knows. Stand up, darling. And then I'm going to toast you. Oh, my God, thank you.
Eli Wallach and Ann Jackson, one of the first couples of American theater. Well, we're going to move on now to Ed Snider, who died recently at the age of 83. He was a Philadelphia businessman who founded the Philadelphia Flyers, Philadelphia's most charismatic owner. He was the man responsible for the Broad Street Bullies. He was a successful businessman and a legend in Philadelphia. Here's NHL.com on Ed Snider.
Ed Snider, philanthropist, entrepreneur, owner of the Philadelphia Flyers, and their #1 fan, an icon in the sports and entertainment industry, devoted family man. He was always on the lookout for the next big thing. He owned a successful record sales company, and then he moved to Philadelphia.
At the time, I was running the Philadelphia Eagles football team.
He fell in love with the city, and that would change his life. On a trip to Boston, he saw thousands of people waiting in line. For what? Hockey. He thought, Philly needs this. Philadelphia would never be the same. Ed mortgaged his home and founded the Philadelphia Flyers.
Probably the most fear I ever had was the day I closed the deal on the Flyers.
The Flyers needed a place to play, so Ed had the vision to build the Spectrum and later the Wells Fargo Center. And within just 7 years, he saw his team bring home 2 consecutive Stanley Cups.
2 million people came to 2 separate parades, which is pretty remarkable.
The passion that the Flyers have starts with and ends with Ed Snider.
I think Ed Snider is probably the biggest fan the Flyers have. He's been passionate all these years. That's his baby.
He was always very welcoming of the fans coming to him and greeting him. And he knew that he was the public face of the team and that it was his team.
Ed cared deeply about the team's fans and the team's players. Their experience was also a special one.
And I really like him and love him too, you know.
1 year I had a bad start. First 30 games I wasn't playing so well, and he actually brought me for lunch, and I was pretty nervous. And he basically just told me to relax and just go out there and have fun. It looks like I'm not having fun anymore. But there's not a lot of owners that would go see their players and say, just relax and have fun.
We all felt the special thing about the Flyers is their competitiveness, but I think also the family atmosphere.
He is the Flyers. He is the face of the Flyers. He is, he was, he always will be.
The Flyers were his passion, but Ed wanted to win at whatever he took on. In business, that happened a lot. In the 70s, he created Prism, the channel that would inspire a new trend of regional sports networks. In the 80s, he started one of the nation's first all-sports radio stations. He created Spectacor when he saw it made sense to bring sports teams, entertainment, and arena management together.
Things that are taken for granted today all came out of this guy's head. He was a genius.
And in the 90s, he created a joint venture with Comcast and remained the managing partner.
Right after we made the deal, I went to my first hockey game with Ed. We were in Madison Square Garden. That was really exciting to be the only Flyers fans in a huge screaming Ranger building. And I invited the chairman of home box office to join me. And Ed gave me one of those Ed Snider looks with the eyes and the stare. And the game ended, and thank goodness we won the game. He took me aside, and we were brand new partners. We didn't know each other that well. He said, "Don't ever bring a Ranger fan to my box again." And I never did.
One of Ed's hallmarks was his management style. It didn't matter whether it was the hockey team or his business team. Ed surrounded himself with the best people.
You look for good people, and you let them do their job.
You don't work for Ed, you work with Ed.
There's kind of one Ed. There's not a business Ed or a hockey Ed or a family man Ed. He really is one seamless guy. And everybody sees that. It's genuine.
We're going to move on to our feature, Nera White, who died recently at the age of 80. She's probably the greatest basketball player you never heard of. She came out of Macon County, Tennessee, went to Nashville Business College, and she was the best female basketball player of the 1950s and 60s. But she could only play AAU ball because the NCAA didn't recognize women's basketball until the 1970s. Here's the Tennessean on Nera White.
Nera White, one of the greatest female athletes of all time. Nera White is as reclusive as she was fantastic on the basketball court. Nera, for whatever reason, shuns the spotlight. She was fine when she was playing in it, but since that time, she has just not been available. The thing that I think they most say about Nera is she wasn't just a great player in her era. She would have been the same caliber player today that she was then.
I would say that she was one of the greatest that's ever played the game. Even the Russians thought that, and they beat us. But she had the strength, the speed, and very smart. Nera could dunk the ball, but she was not allowed to do it in the game. And we would get the practice early, and that's when she'd dunk the ball. She showed the rest of us that she could dunk.
Larry Taft got to spend some time with Nera on her farm.
We really needed to do a really in-depth story on her because of how great she was, and she was going to be one of the first 2 women players ever inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame. I spent almost 2 entire days on her farm up there. As a young girl, had to work on the family farm because her dad was ill. One of the stories that I did was she felt like women and their athletic skills had been ignored for way too long. Consequently, she was pretty shy, and she was honored by the Tennessee State Legislature a few months before she went into the National Basketball Hall of Fame. And if it hadn't been for her sister, she wouldn't have come to that. She often told me when we interviewed that she worked so hard on the basketball floor because she had worked so hard in the cotton field and cornfield and milking cows and working behind a team of mules and doing that kind of thing. You grew up in rural Tennessee learning to work to sustain your family. With her father being ill, that's what she did. And that's just why I think she was so good in basketball, is because she worked to be good.
Nashville Business College wasn't what you think of as a Vanderbilt or a Belmont or a Tennessee. It was a business college that basically taught high-level secretarial skills. It didn't have sororities, fraternities, more of a pure school. It also sponsored an AAU basketball team. They would travel across the country and find whatever games they could come up with. She was a 15-time AAU All-American from 1955 to 1969. She led Nashville Business College to 10 national championships. She helped Nashville Business College win 91 of 92 games during one stretch. She's the first woman inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. She is also in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame and the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. She was number 51 on Sports Illustrated's for Women's Century's 100 Greatest Sportswomen's list. I just wish that she could relish her accomplishments and just take advantage of what she has, the legacy that she's left behind.
I think she was a country girl like so many of us. I think that she probably never got out of Macon County where she was born until probably she was in high school. And I think that she just never got over the limelight because everybody wanted to talk to her and watch her play because she was that good. Probably one of the biggest hearts of anybody I know. She's always helped people. She's raised her son, and she's helping with her grandchildren now. And she's just a good individual with a huge heart.
We're going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. We're going to close with Andy Thunderclap Newman, who died recently at the age of 73. He was the leader of a band put together by Pete Townshend, Thunderclap Newman. They had only one hit, but it went to #1 in England, 37 in the United States, and it was sort of a hippie anthem in 1969. Here it is, Something in the Air.